Welcome to the program. Today we'll talk about the RBA's decision on interest rates yesterday and the speech from Governor Philip Lowe. We'll look at the market and we'll talk about some stocks such as Telstra and TPG. I'm Marty Switzer.
I'm not Peter Switzer, but I'm
Paul Rickard. And we're mad about money. Paul, morning. Governor made a speech last night after deciding to leave interest rates on hold, which surprised nobody.
50 out of 50 economists got it right.
For once.
For once.
What I actually found to be quite interesting was it was a very upbeat, very positive speech. He obviously pointed out some of the issues that we're faced with at the moment, you know, most notably the housing market and, you know, a softer labour market. But overall, he said things are looking pretty good. Yeah,
it was more positive than the press gave it credit to this morning.
Much more positive.
I mean, all the headlines today about the Reserve Bank warning about housing and the housing bubble, and it seems like APRA or the Reserve Bank or ASIC are sort of fighting to grab the
headlines. They really should be taking you to task about this, because they're just creating fear for not going to say for no reason, but basically they're way off the mark, the press.
I think they're way off the mark. It's a very uneven housing market. Even looking at those stats that came out, you know, Sydney 18%, Melbourne 15%, but it's only 4% in Brisbane. It's negative in Perth.
Yeah.
It's flat in Adelaide. You know, and
regional, it's not even growing. Exactly.
So it is a specialised market. I think what the governor was really saying was that it's all about supply.
Supply and demand. He mentioned that twice in his speech.
That didn't get a lot of pickup.
No.
Look, sure. I mean, I think if you're going into the Sydney property market, you've got to be really careful, right? I mean, all the data says that the growth has been too fast, too quick, and there are some issues. And clearly, APRA is going to make it harder for borrowers to get finance. And look, at the end of the day, I don't know whether you take too much notice of all this stuff. Just expect more of it.
Yeah. It's not going to let up.
Well, it's not going to let up. And I mean, and the whole Fairfax ABC, whatever it is, everyone wants to beat up the housing market.
It's an easy story.
It's an easy story. I mean, bad news sells and they're going to keep on repeating. I mean, I think probably the only, if I say mistake that I think the Reserve Bank has made, I think they could have started to lift interest rates already. A lot of people still worried about the economy. There's an interesting article from Judith Sloan this morning in The Australian. She's quite negative, critical of the Reserve Bank. But, you know, we do have had these very low interest rates for a long time. I still think the next move is up, and I think talk about they're going to come down again is just wrong. So I think you've got to be playing for that a little bit.
Very split camp on that one, isn't it?
Yeah, there is a split camp on that. We interviewed on the radio yesterday Martin Lakos from Macquarie. They're still possibly not ruling out another cut.
So, yeah, a couple of economists talk about that.
I'm probably in the minority, and but I think, you know, the economy will get better and interest rates are up. Will go up next, but 50 out of 50 economists were right yesterday. There is no sign of that at the moment.
Yep. Markets in general, not a lot happening at the moment. Obviously, some stuff around the banks.
Not a lot, but I mean, I think some good underlying strength. If you look at the actual data for March, every sector was positive. So that's all the 11 industry sectors were all positive in March. That's quite rare to have every sector up, even materials.
Who's the best performing sector?
Best performing sector again was healthcare, which is no surprise. It's up over 15% year to date. But the really important sector that's led the market up this year is financials. Again, up the market, if you add in dividends, is up 4.8% at the end of March. Financials, it's something like about 5.9%. That's the biggest sector. That's what's taking it forward. The only sectors that are negative year to date are telco, which might be the segue to the next part. But, you know, there is strength there, and I think that also there are massive dividends being paid out in the next couple of weeks.
So people are jumping on board.
You know, there's a lot of money floating around. There is also this other factor we keep talking about is all the stuff that's going to flow into super between now and 30th of June. I think there's some huge demand issues that are going to give underlying support to this market. So I reckon if you're waiting for the pullback, sure, if the US pulls back, we'll follow. But I think there's probably a good undercurrent of buying support in this market, and so if you aren't set, I'd be a bit nervous.
Okay. Well, you mentioned before the telco sector. It is a good segue. So, what are you seeing in this space?
Yeah, a lot of people saying, "What do I do with my Telstra?" I mean,
just hang on.
I think you hang on. I think if you think the market's going to go through 6,000, which Peter and many others do, I don't think Telstra's going to perform. So it's going to be an underperformer on the way up. But it has a lot of support around this 450 level. People aren't. It's not going to cut its dividend anytime soon, right?
So it's a good income play.
So it's a good income play, and I think they will find a way to deal with the whole NBN issue. I mean, essentially what's happening is Telstra's being replaced as the monopoly supplier. Right? You know, it had the monopoly wholesale supplier. The NBN will become a monopoly wholesale supplier. Telstra will be competing with Optus and TPG and others as essentially like a retailer, and that's going to create some challenges around earnings, and that's really what's out there at the moment. And Telstra's still got to find a way through that maze. TPG doing well, announced this morning that they've won a bit of spectrum in Singapore, so they're going offshore a little bit in a very niche market.
Yeah.
I like the stock. I think there's some value in the other telcos.
What sort of weighting of a portfolio would you have at TPG?
Well, I mean, again, versus Telstra, they're just a minnow, right? I mean, even though they are effectively building their own broadband network, but I mean, maybe as a growth stock, I think you've got to look at them as a well-run company. They got sold off a long way, bounced back a little bit. I think they're worth having
Worth a look.
Worth a look, yeah.
That's what we've got time for. I'm Marty Switzer.
I'm Paul Rickard.
And we're mad about money.